millionaire, shared a bed with his assistant, trapped by a winter storm, and lost his heart. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The storm had shut down half the state. Flights were grounded. Highways turned to ice. And yet, the CEO of Weston Enterprises didn't flinch. Ethan Weston, young, ruthless, flawless in his Armani coat, stood in the crowded lobby of a mountain lodge where stranded travelers whispered his name like he was royalty. Fully booked, the manager stammered. We only have one room left. Ethan's jaw tightened. Behind him, his assistant pulled her thin coat tighter against the cold. Her name was Claire. She was 26. From a working-class neighborhood no one in this lobby had ever heard of. She never expected to be stuck in a luxury lodge, much less with the man who signed her paychecks. "Then give it to me," Ethan said flatly. The manager hesitated. "It's only one bed." The air froze harder than the storm outside. Ethan's ice-blue eyes shifted toward Claire. She looked away, heat rising in her cheeks despite the bitter cold. "You'll survive," he said at last, his voice cut like glass. But beneath it, something else. A decision. An order. Claire's throat tightened. One bed? With him? She wanted to argue, but the howl of the blizzard rattling the doors answered for her. Moments later, she followed him upstairs. Her boots squeaked on polished wood, each step echoing louder than her heartbeat. The room smelled of cedar. A single lamp glowed warm against the storm outside. And in the middle stood the problem. One king-sized bed, sheets crisp and white as snow. Ethan set his leather briefcase on the dresser. Calm, detached, as if this were nothing unusual. Claire hovered at the door, clutching her gloves. "You'll take the left side," he said without turning. "The left side of that?" He finally looked at her. "Unless you'd rather sleep in the hallway." She swallowed, pulse racing. He can't be serious. But he was. Hours later, the storm howled against the glass. Claire lay stiffly on one side of the bed, wrapped in her sweater, scarf, even her gloves. She stared at the ceiling, trying not to breathe too loudly. On the other side, Ethan lay perfectly still, as if even the mattress bowed to him. But the space between them, just a pillow, felt like a canyon. Claire pulled the blanket higher, whispering to herself, "I shouldn't be here." A voice cut through the dark. Low, controlled. "Then why are you?" Her chest tightened. She hadn't realized he was awake. "I don't have a choice," she whispered. The storm pounded the windows. Silence stretched. Then Ethan spoke again. His words didn't sound like an order. They sounded like confession. "Neither do I." Morning came gray and heavy. The storm still roared outside, burying the lodge in white silence. Claire woke first. She was still on the left side, wrapped in her scarf, one hand clenched around the blanket like a lifeline. She turned her head carefully. Ethan hadn't moved. He slept on his back, jaw set, hair perfectly in place, even after a night on a shared bed. For a moment, she just stared. He looks human when he sleeps. The thought startled her. She looked away quickly, sliding out of bed. The floor was ice cold beneath her socks. She pulled her coat on, quietly moving toward the window. The snowdrifts reached halfway up the glass. The roads below? Gone. She whispered under her breath, "We're still trapped." "Obviously," came his voice behind her. She spun. Ethan was awake now, sitting up, his eyes sharper than the storm itself. "You talk in your sleep," he said calmly. Her face flushed. What did I say?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stood, adjusted his cufflinks, as if a night trapped in a blizzard meant nothing. "Pack your things. The storm won't last forever. We'll head back the second the road clears." Claire frowned. That could be days. He looked at her then. Really looked. "Then make yourself useful in the meantime." Downstairs, the lodge was chaos. Families huddled by the fireplace, kids crying for food, travelers complaining at the desk. Claire found herself helping the overwhelmed staff, passing out blankets, calming children, organizing supplies. It wasn't her job, but she couldn't just stand by. Ethan watched from the corner, arms crossed, a wall of tailored indifference. Yet his eyes kept following her, how she crouched to comfort a child, how she offered her last granola bar to an old woman without hesitation. One of the stranded businessmen muttered near him, "That girl isn't paid enough for this." Ethan didn't reply. But for the first time, his jaw softened. Later that afternoon, when the storm howled louder, the lodge lost power. The lights flickered out, plunging the lobby into dim firelight. Panic rippled through the crowd. The manager wrung his hands. "We can't reach the generator until the storm dies down." Claire stepped forward. "I'll go." The room fell silent. "You?" Ethan's voice sliced through. "You'll freeze in 5 minutes." She met his gaze. "Someone has to try. The children are already shivering." "Oh." The determination in her voice silenced even him. Minutes later, Claire pulled on borrowed snow boots and a too-big parka. She pushed open the back door. Wind whipped her face like knives. Ethan stood at the doorway, expression unreadable. "If you get lost out there, no one will find you." She tightened the hood around her face. "Then don't let me get lost." Their eyes locked for a beat. Something unspoken passed between them. And then she stepped into the storm. The wind swallowed her instantly. Snow tore at her legs, stinging her skin. She fought step by step toward the generator shed, her breath coming in clouds. Inside, she struggled with frozen latches, metal biting her fingers. For a second, doubt crept in. What am I doing here? I'm just an assistant. But then she remembered the children huddled in the dark. She pushed harder, forcing the latch open. The old generator coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. Back at the lodge, the lights flickered on. Warmth spread. A cheer erupted. And in the middle of it all, Ethan Weston stood perfectly still, staring at the door Claire had disappeared through. The man who had built empires with numbers and ice-cold logic felt his chest tighten, because the woman he once saw as disposable had just saved them all. Claire staggered back inside minutes later, snow in her hair, cheeks flushed, hands trembling. She tried to smile. "It's done." The crowd clapped. Children hugged her legs. And Ethan? He didn't clap. He simply stepped forward. His coat brushed her shoulder as he leaned in close. His voice low enough for only her to hear. "You could have died out there." She lifted her chin, breathless but steady. "But I didn't." His eyes held hers, storm against storm. And for the first time, Ethan Weston couldn't look away. By morning, the storm had finally begun to break. The roads were still buried, but the sky cleared to a pale blue, sunlight sparkling off endless fields of snow. Inside the lodge, people bustled with relief. Children laughed again. Coffee brewed in the kitchen. The world felt alive, and everyone knew why. Claire. She moved quietly among them, cheeks still pink from the cold, sleeves rolled up as she helped serve breakfast. Every smile she received felt heavier than the tray she carried. At the far end of the room, Ethan Weston sat by the fire, untouched coffee at his side. He watched her. Silent. A group of businessmen whispered nearby. "That's the girl who fixed the power. She saved us all. Imagine just an assistant." Ethan's jaw tightened. Just an assistant? The quiet didn't last long. By noon, reporters had found their way up the mountain roads. Cameras flashed through the lodge windows, voices shouting questions. "Mr. Weston, is it true you spent the storm with your assistant? Did she really save the lodge? Are you too involved?" Claire froze mid-step, a tray of mugs in her hands. The crowd turned, eyes burning with curiosity. Her pulse spiked. Heat rushed to her face. Involved? With him? Ethan rose slowly. His height, his presence, silenced the room. He walked past her without a word, out into the flashing cameras. The cold slapped his face. But Ethan didn't flinch. "Yes," he said flatly. "She's my assistant. She acted when others froze. She saved lives here, and she deserves respect." The reporters pounced. "So the rumors of you sharing a bed, true or false?" Ethan paused. One beat, two. His silence was enough. The flashes went wild. Inside, Claire's stomach dropped. They'll never believe it was innocent. Never. That evening, the headlines exploded across every screen. Millionaire CEO trapped in storm with assistant. One bed, one night, endless questions. Claire sat alone in the corner of the lodge, phone buzzing nonstop. Messages poured in, some mocking, some cruel, some too curious. She clenched the phone, fighting the sting in her eyes. I didn't ask for this. A shadow fell over her. Ethan. He placed a steaming cup of tea on the table. You'll ignore them, he said simply. She looked up, eyes burning. Easy for you. They'll forget your name tomorrow. Mine will stay branded forever. His jaw tightened. For once, he didn't have an answer. Later that night, when most guests slept, Claire found herself staring at the snow through the window, the headlines replaying in her mind. Behind her, footsteps. Ethan, you shouldn't be awake, he said. Neither should you. He came closer, stopping beside her. The silence stretched, filled only by the crackle of the fire. You think this will ruin you, he said finally. It already has, she whispered. He turned, eyes fixed on her. Then let me ruin with you. She blinked, stunned. What? His voice was low, steady, dangerous in its honesty. If the world insists on writing a story about us, then let it. But it won't be the story they expect. Her breath caught, and before she could speak, the sound of another camera shutter clicked from outside the window. Someone was watching. By the time the snow cleared and the roads reopened, the damage was already done. Headlines blazed across every outlet. Billionaire CEO, one bed, one assistant. Storm turns into scandal. When Ethan's black SUV pulled up to the Weston Enterprises tower 2 days later, a sea of cameras blocked the entrance. Shouts filled the air. Is she your mistress? Did you buy her silence? Are you in love with your assistant? Claire shrank into her seat, heart hammering. She had never felt so exposed. Ethan's expression didn't change. He opened the door, stepped out, and for a moment the crowd roared louder. He didn't flinch. He extended his hand. Claire. She hesitated, but took it. The cameras exploded again. Inside the tower, the atmosphere was worse. Board members lined the long table, their voices sharp and unforgiving. This scandal could cost us millions. Investors are already questioning your judgment. Your father's legacy, do you intend to destroy it overnight? Ethan sat at the head, silent, jaw locked. Claire stood awkwardly near the door, feeling every stare like a knife. She wished she could disappear. Finally, one director sneered. Dismiss her. Issue a statement. End it now. Oh. Ethan's eyes flicked to Claire. She braced herself. This is it. He'll cut me loose. But instead, his voice came cold, firm. She stays. The room erupted. After the meeting, Claire found him in his office, staring out at the skyline. You didn't have to defend me, she said quietly. He turned, eyes unreadable. Yes, I did. Her chest tightened. She wanted to thank him, but words caught in her throat. Before she could speak, the door burst open. A tall woman strode in immaculate dress, diamond earrings, confidence in every step. Ethan, she said sharply. We need to talk. Claire froze. She had seen her in magazines. Victoria Harlow, heiress, Ethan's almost fiancée. Victoria's eyes landed on Claire. So this is her. The words dripped with disdain. The tension sliced the air. You're wasting your reputation on this? Victoria gestured at Claire, every syllable laced with venom. Claire's face burned. She wanted to vanish, but Ethan spoke first. Careful, Victoria. Victoria laughed bitterly. Careful? You've always been careful, Ethan. Careful with your empire. Careful with your image. And now you risk it all for a nobody in a thrift store coat? Claire's throat tightened. Every word was a dagger. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low but sharp. She saved lives while others panicked. She stood in the storm when the rest of you hid behind walls of glass. Don't call her a nobody. Victoria faltered, just for a second. Then her smile returned, cold and cutting. Fine. But when the investors turn, don't expect me to save you. She turned on her heel and left, heels echoing like gunshots. The office fell silent again. Claire stared at the floor, trying to steady her breath. You didn't have to say that, she whispered. Ethan exhaled, loosening his tie. Yes, I did. Their eyes met. And for the first time, she saw at his armor cracking. Not just a CEO, not just power. A man standing alone against the storm, just as trapped as she was. The silence stretched. Then his phone buzzed. A new headline flashed on the screen. Board demands official statement. Rumors of resignation swirl. Ethan Weston's empire was on fire, and the woman beside him might be the only one who could save it. 3 nights later, the storm outside was gone. But the storm inside Weston Enterprises had only grown louder. Investors demanded answers. The board ordered a press conference. And Ethan Weston, for the first time in his career, couldn't dodge the spotlight. The ballroom of the Westwood Hotel gleamed with chandeliers and polished marble. Cameras lined the walls, microphones crowding the podium. The air buzzed with expectation. Claire stood at the edge of the stage, hands clenched together. She had no right to be here. Yet every headline had dragged her name into the fire. Tonight, she couldn't hide. When Ethan stepped to the podium, the room fell silent. Flashes burst. Reporters leaned forward. "Mr. Weston," one shouted, "did you or did you not share a bed with your assistant during the blizzard?" Another voice cut in. "Are you in a relationship with her? Did you misuse company funds to—" "Enough," Ethan said firmly. His voice filled the hall. "Claire is my assistant. She acted with courage when everyone else froze. She saved lives that night. She deserves respect, not ridicule." "Oh." The room erupted with more questions. Ethan's jaw hardened. His empire was slipping through his fingers. And then one reporter turned his microphone toward Claire. "What about you, miss? How does it feel being the reason Weston Enterprises is in chaos?" The crowd turned, eyes stabbing at her. Claire froze. Every muscle screamed to run. But then she saw the children's faces from the lodge. The ones who had clung to her when the lights came back on. Her hands stopped shaking. She stepped forward, the microphones thrust toward her face. Claire's voice was quiet at first, but steady. "I wasn't hired to save a hotel. I was hired to answer phones, manage schedules, and stay invisible." The room shifted. No one had expected her to speak. But when the storm hit and the lights went out, I didn't see billionaires or CEOs. I saw cold children, terrified families. And I did what anyone with a heartbeat would do. I acted. A hush spread across the hall. One reporter whispered, "She's right." Claire lifted her chin, eyes scanning the cameras. "I don't have money. I don't have a famous last name. What I do have is the same thing every worker has the choice to either turn away or step up. That night, I stepped up. For the first time, the cameras weren't hunting for scandal. They were listening." Ethan stared at her from the podium, something raw flickering in his usually cold eyes. The board members at the front exchanged looks. Investors who had arrived ready to walk out now sat forward in silence. Claire took a breath, her voice firm. "If that ruins a reputation, then maybe it's not mine that needs questioning." Gasps echoed through the ballroom. The moment broke like thunder. Reporters shouted again, but this time the words were different. "Heroic assistance saves lives. Not scandal sacrifice. Is she the face Weston Enterprises needs?" Ethan stepped beside her. He didn't touch her, but the closeness spoke louder than words. The cameras flashed, capturing a picture no one expected. The billionaire and his assistant, standing side by side. And for the first time in years, Ethan Weston smiled. But as the applause spread, Claire felt a chill crawl up her spine. Because in the corner of the ballroom, Victoria Harlow watched with narrowed eyes, her lips curling into a smile that promised war. The applause was still echoing when the lights in the ballroom shifted. The reporters turned. Victoria Harlow was gliding toward the podium. Tall, perfectly composed, every step a statement. The daughter of old money. The woman who once stood at Ethan's side as his expected future. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said sweetly into the nearest microphone, "what a touching little speech." The cameras swung back to her instantly. "Miss Harlow," one reporter called, "what's your response to this scandal?" Victoria tilted her head, gaze cutting toward Claire. "My response? Weston Enterprises deserves stability, not theatrics. Ethan knows this. Which is why his father once arranged an alliance with me." Gasps rippled through the room. Claire's stomach dropped. Victoria pressed on, her voice sharp but polished. "And what do we have now? A company's legacy tangled up in the pity story of a girl who should never have been near this stage." Claire's cheeks burned. She wanted to shrink away, but her feet locked in place. Ethan stepped forward, jaw tight. "Victoria, that's enough." But she only smiled wider. "Is it? Investors are watching. Clients are watching. Do you think they'll trust billions to a CEO who shares a bed with his assistant in the middle of nowhere?" The hall buzzed, reporters firing questions, cameras flashing. Claire's chest ached. Every word felt like poison seeping through the room. She tried to step back, but Ethan's hand brushed her arm steady, grounding. "Stay," he murmured. Then he turned to the cameras, voice firm. "My company is not defined by gossip. It's defined by actions. Claire acted when others would not. That's the truth." Victoria laughed, sharp as glass. "Truth? Then let's tell the whole truth." She pulled a slim folder from her bag, holding it high like a dagger. "This is Claire's background. Records, financial history. Do you know who your so-called hero really is?" The room stilled. Claire's breath caught. She knew exactly what was inside. Late bills. A father who abandoned the family. A mother who worked herself sick. Every flaw of her past laid bare on paper. Her worst fear exposed under the brightest lights. Victoria flipped the folder open with satisfaction. Debt. An unfinished degree. A child sibling she can barely support. "Is this who you want tied to Weston Enterprises?" The whispers spread like wildfire. "Debt? She dropped out of college? She's not even qualified." Claire's vision blurred. Her throat closed. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Then Ethan's voice cut through. Low, steady. "Enough." He stepped to Victoria, ripped the folder from her hands, and tossed it onto the table. Pages scattered like fallen snow. "You think this discredits her? It proves more than you realize. Claire has fought for everything she has. She doesn't hide behind wealth. She doesn't coast on a last name. She worked. She sacrificed. And when it mattered most, she saved lives, while people like you worried about appearances." The room gasped. Victoria's mask slipped for the first time. Reporters shouted again. "Ethan, are you admitting you're protecting her? Is this about business or love?" Silence fell. All eyes locked on him. Ethan's gaze flicked to Claire. For once, the cold armor was gone. "Yes," he said. His voice didn't waver. "I'm protecting her. Because she deserves it." The flashes exploded. The ballroom shook with chaos. Claire's heart pounded in her chest. He just said that? Out loud? Victoria recovered quickly, her smile icy. "How noble. But let's see how noble you look when the stock price collapses tomorrow." She spun on her heel and strode out, cameras chasing her every move. The room dissolved into chaos. Reporters shouting, investors calling, the board whispering frantically. Through it all, Ethan stayed rooted. And beside him, Claire's hands trembled. Later, when the ballroom had emptied, they found themselves alone in a side corridor. The noise of the city buzzed faintly through the windows. Claire leaned against the wall, head spinning. "They know everything now," she whispered. "My debts, my failures, they'll never forget." Ethan stepped closer. His voice was quiet but sharp. "Do you really think any of that makes me see you as less?" Her eyes stung. "It makes the world see me as less." "Then let me deal with the world." She shook her head. "You can't fix me with press conferences, Ethan." He paused, searching her face. "I don't want to fix you, Claire. I just don't want to lose you." The words hung heavy between them. Before she could answer, the sound of a phone buzzed. Ethan glanced down. The headline flashing across the screen made his blood run cold. Weston stock plummets after press conference. Investors demand action. His empire was collapsing, and this time, no storm, no speech, no confession could stop it. Only one question remained. Would standing beside Claire cost him everything, or finally give him the one thing money couldn't buy? The next morning, the city woke to chaos. News tickers scrolled across every channel. Weston stock crashes after press conference. Investors demand CEO step down. Inside the Weston Enterprises tower, the air was sharp as glass. Board members filled the conference room. Suits, ties, anger simmering beneath every glance. Ethan Weston sat at the head of the table, shoulders squared, eyes cold. Beside him, Claire sat stiff, wishing she were invisible. The chairman slammed his hand on the table. "This is untenable. We cannot allow your personal entanglement to drag this company into ruin." Another director leaned forward. Our shares dropped 12% overnight. 12. Do you understand what that means? Ethan's jaw tightened. I understand exactly. And I also understand that my leadership has doubled this company's value in 5 years. Don't forget who you're talking to. But his words only sparked more fury. One board member sneered. This isn't about numbers anymore. It's about image. And your image is toxic. Another voice chimed in. If you want to salvage what's left, dismiss her. Issue a formal apology. Distance yourself. All eyes turned to Claire. Her chest constricted. She had been silent all morning, praying no one would notice her. But now, the weight of the empire was crushing her. She whispered, maybe they're right. Maybe I should. Ethan cut her off, his voice ablade. Don't. Oh. The room stilled. He looked at her, and his words weren't just for her, they were for everyone listening. She doesn't leave. Not now. Not ever. Gasps rippled through the board. The chairman's face flushed. Then you leave us no choice. He slid a paper across the table. A vote. Effective immediately, the board will decide whether Ethan Weston retains his position as CEO. Silence. Heavy. Fatal. Claire's heart sank. They're going to take everything from him. Because of me. Her hands shook under the table, but Ethan leaned back, calm, unyielding. Go ahead. Vote. Let's see which of you have the courage to destroy the very man who built the empire you profit from. Oh, the tension snapped like a whip. Board members exchanged looks. Pens hovered. Minutes later, the verdict came in. 5 for him. 7 against. The chairman's voice was final. Ethan Weston, you are hereby removed as CEO of Weston Enterprises. The words dropped like thunder. Claire gasped. No. Ethan's expression didn't flinch. He rose slowly, buttoning his suit jacket as if he had expected this. Enjoy the empire without me, he said coldly. We'll see how long it lasts. He turned and walked out, silence chasing his footsteps. Claire scrambled after him, tears stinging her eyes. In the corridor, she caught up. Ethan, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. If I had never... He stopped abruptly, turning on her. His eyes burned. Don't you dare blame yourself. They were waiting for a reason to come after me. You were just the excuse. Her voice trembled. But your company, your life's work. He shook his head. My company was never my life. It was my prison, and maybe losing it is the only way I'll ever be free. Claire stared at him, stunned. His armor had cracked before. Now it was shattering. That evening, the news blazed with breaking updates. Weston removed as CEO. Company future in doubt. Social media divided. Some called him reckless. Others praised Claire as the woman who had stood in the storm. But for Ethan, none of it mattered. He sat in his penthouse, staring out at the city lights, a glass untouched in his hand. Claire stood near the door, unsure if she should leave. Finally, he spoke. I had everything money could buy, and it never filled the emptiness. Then you came. You walked into my storm. And somehow, you became the only thing I couldn't lose. Her chest ached. Tears blurred her vision. Ethan. He turned, meeting her eyes. His voice dropped lower. Tell me I didn't throw it all away for nothing. The words pierced the air, heavier than any vote, any scandal. Claire's lips parted. But before she could answer, his phone lit up on the table. A new message, from Victoria. You thought losing the company was the end? It's just the beginning. The city hadn't even absorbed the news of Ethan's removal when the next scandal erupted. By morning, tabloids screamed with new headlines. Assistant's family scandal surfaces. Claire's father wanted for fraud 10 years ago. Billionaire's fall tied to a disgraced name. Claire dropped the newspaper onto the counter of Ethan's penthouse kitchen, her hands trembling. This isn't true, she whispered. He left us when I was 15. I haven't seen him since. Ethan's jaw was granite. He scanned the page, each word dripping venom. Victoria, he muttered. Claire's chest ached. She's digging up ghosts, and the worst part? Everyone will believe it. Hours later, outside Weston Tower, the crowd of reporters was louder than ever. Claire, did you know about your father's crimes? Are you hiding stolen money? Was Ethan protecting you because you're involved? Claire froze on the steps. Microphones swarmed. Flashes blinded her. Ethan stepped in front of her, his arm firm like a shield. "That's enough," he growled. But the damage was done. By evening, the news cycle had spun out of control. Investors who had wavered now walked away. The board announced an emergency restructure. And Claire's name, once whispered with admiration, was now smeared across every headline. That night, she sat curled on Ethan's sofa, staring at her phone. Messages flooded in. Some cruel, some pitying, but one stood out. A photo. Her little brother, Jacob, 17, now leaving their apartment. A camera shoved in his face. Claire's breath caught. "They're after him, too." Ethan crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling the phone from her trembling hands. His eyes were steel. "They crossed the line," Claire's voice cracked. "I can handle me, Ethan. But Jacob, he's just a kid. He doesn't deserve this." He knelt in front of her, hands steady on her shoulders. "Listen to me. You are not alone in this anymore. Whatever storm comes, we face it together." Her chest heaved. Her eyes stung. For a second, she believed him. But the storm wasn't done. The next morning, Claire was summoned not by Ethan, not by the board, but by the press. Victoria herself had called a charity gala at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Cameras were already waiting. When Claire and Ethan arrived, the ballroom glittered with crystal and velvet. Every powerful figure in the city was there: donors, politicians, executives. And at the center, Victoria Harlow stood with a champagne glass, her smile sweet poison. "Well, well," she purred as they entered, the hero and her fallen king. The crowd chuckled. Reporters leaned in. Claire's knees nearly buckled. The whispers cut like knives. "That's her? The fraud's daughter?" No wonder Ethan lost everything. Victoria raised her glass higher. "Ladies and gentlemen, it seems our city has been fooled. Not only did Ethan Weston abandon his responsibilities, but he handed them over to a woman with a legacy of crime in her bloodline." Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Claire's hands trembled. Her throat burned. Every instinct told her to run, but Ethan's hand brushed hers, steady, silent. Her heart pounded. She remembered the lodge, the storm, the children in the dark. And slowly, she stepped forward. Her voice shook at first, but carried. "My father did make mistakes. He left us in debt and shame. But those mistakes were his, not mine." The ballroom fell quieter. "I've spent my life cleaning up after him, working nights, giving up college, raising my brother when no one else would. If that makes me guilty in your eyes, so be it. But don't you dare confuse his sins with my choices." The silence deepened. Even the reporters lowered their cameras. Claire lifted her chin, fire burning through her fear. "You want to shame me for where I came from? Fine. But I won't apologize for surviving. I won't apologize for fighting. And I definitely won't apologize for saving lives when you," her eyes cut to Victoria, "were too busy saving your jewelry from the storm." The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs, even applause from one corner. Ethan's gaze never left her. For once, it wasn't him commanding the room. It was her. Victoria's smile faltered. She slammed her glass onto the table. "Touching speech. But words don't change numbers. And tomorrow, when Weston Enterprises collapses, no amount of pity will save you." She turned sharply, storming out as cameras chased her. But the mood had shifted. Reporters swarmed Claire, not with accusations, but with new questions. "Claire, how did you keep your family afloat? Will you stand by Ethan no matter what? What's next for you both?" Claire blinked against the flashes, heart racing. How did this happen? Later, outside in the cold night air, Ethan wrapped his coat around her shoulders. "You silenced them," he said softly. "I've seen boardrooms fall quiet, but never like that." Claire shivered under the weight of the coat, under the weight of his gaze. "I just told the truth." He leaned closer, his voice low. "And the truth has never looked stronger." For a moment, the city noise faded. The world faded. It was only them. Until Ethan's phone buzzed again. A single message. From an unknown number. "You think you've beaten Victoria? You haven't seen who's really pulling the strings." Claire froze. Ethan's eyes darkened. Because this storm was far from over. The night after the gala, the city still buzzed with Claire's speech. Headlines shifted. "Assistant defies her past. Is she Weston's future?" But the message on Ethan's phone burned brighter than any headline. "You think you've beaten Victoria? You haven't seen who's really pulling the strings." Ethan paced the penthouse, phone in hand. Claire sat on the sofa, pulling the coat tighter around her shoulders. "Who sent it?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened, eyes distant. Finally, he muttered, "My family." Claire blinked. "Your family?" Ethan turned. His voice was ice. "My father built Weston Enterprises, but it was the family council, the uncles, the cousins who kept the empire intact. They never wanted me in charge. They wanted control. And now, they'll use you to destroy me." The next morning confirmed his fear. At dawn, reporters camped outside the Weston estate. Black cars lined the driveway. Inside, the family council gathered 12 powerful relatives who had circled Ethan like vultures his entire life. Claire stood at his side as they entered the grand hall. The walls glittered with oil paintings of Weston ancestors, each gaze cold and accusing. Uncle Richard, the eldest, slammed his cane against the floor. "You've humiliated this family. You've dragged our name through the mud for a girl who doesn't belong here." Claire flinched. The words hit harder than she expected. Ethan stood taller. "She belongs more than half the people in this room." Gasps. Murmurs. Aunt Lydia hissed. "We warned you, Ethan. Power is not a toy. You were reckless. And now look, our stock bleeds. Our name is mocked." Claire's heart pounded. Every face in the room burned with disdain. Richard pointed a finger at her. You are the disease rotting our bloodline. Your father a criminal, your mother a nobody. Do you think you can wear the Weston name like a crown?" Claire's chest tightened. Her palms shook. She wanted to sink into the floor, but Ethan's hand brushed hers, grounding, steady. He spoke with fire. "If you think bloodlines make you noble, you've forgotten what nobility is. Claire has more courage than anyone in this room. She saved lives while you counted profits." The council erupted. Voices overlapped. "She's destroying us. She'll ruin what we built. Remove him from the inheritance?" Claire's throat ached. She whispered, "Ethan, stop. They'll cut you out." He looked at her, eyes burning. "Let them." The council vote was swift, brutal. By afternoon, Ethan Weston was stripped of his inheritance. The estates, the trust, the board influence. Gone. Claire staggered out of the hall beside him, her voice breaking. "They took everything from you." He exhaled slowly, the winter wind sharp against his face. "They only took chains." She stared at him, stunned. For the first time, Ethan Weston, the man who had ruled boardrooms and towers, was free of his family's grip. But freedom came at a cost. That night, the city buzzed with a new story. Weston heir disowned. Family power struggle explodes. Victoria's face flashed on the evening news. She stood outside Weston Tower, smirking into microphones. "Ethan has finally been removed. The family will rebuild stronger. Without him, without her." Claire turned off the television, nausea rising in her throat. "They're erasing you," she whispered. Ethan stood by the window, the city lights cold against his silhouette. "Then we start over, from nothing." Her breath caught. "From nothing? Ethan, you don't know how." He turned, gaze sharp. "You do." The words sank into her. She thought of long nights balancing bills, of patching shoes for her brother, of stretching one meal into 3. She thought of the storm, the lodge, the generator. She had lived with nothing her whole life. He had ruled with everything. And now, for the first time, they stood on the same ground. But the storm wasn't done. As they spoke, another message flashed onto Ethan's phone. This time, no number, just a video. Claire leaned over his shoulder. Her blood ran cold. It was Jacob, her little brother. Surrounded by men in dark suits. Fear in his eyes. A voice in the video. "Walk away, Ethan. Leave the company. Leave her. Or the boy pays the price." The screen went black. Claire's scream caught in her throat. "Jacob." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone, fury radiating from him. "They want war," he said. His voice was deadly calm. "Then war is what they'll get." The video replayed in the silence of Ethan's penthouse. Jacob's face, terrified, surrounded by shadows. The voice, "Walk away, Ethan. Leave the company, leave her, or the boy pays the price." Claire's breath came in sharp gasps. "They took him. They took my brother." Ethan grabbed her shoulders, steady and firm. "Listen to me. They want fear. They want us broken. We won't give them that." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "He's just a kid. He can't. Ethan's voice cut through. I promised you. Whatever storm comes, we face it together. I don't care if it's family, boardrooms, or thugs in dark suits. We will get him back. Hours later, the city's midnight glow reflected off wet streets. Ethan's black car sliced through the night. Claire sat beside him, hands clenched in her lap. Her pulse thundered. Where are we going? She asked. To the one place Weston money never touched, Ethan muttered. The docks. Claire's stomach twisted. You know who has him? His jaw flexed. My Uncle Richard doesn't dirty his hands. He uses people. And the docks are where those people make threats real. She swallowed hard. Ethan, this isn't a boardroom. This is dangerous. He glanced at her, voice low. So is losing you. The car rolled to a stop. The docks stretched dark and endless, waves slapping against rusted steel. A single warehouse glowed with dim light. Figures moved inside. Claire's chest tightened. He's in there. Ethan touched her hand. Stay here. She shook her head fiercely. Number. He's my brother. I'm not hiding while you fight for him. For a beat, Ethan stared at her. Then he nodded once. Then stay close. Inside the warehouse, the air stank of oil and dust. Jacob sat tied to a chair in the center, eyes wide with terror. Around him, 3 men in suits, one holding a phone. Right on time, the leader sneered as Ethan stepped into the light. Weston pride never dies, does it? Ethan's voice was ice. Let him go. Your fight is with me. The man smirked. Our orders were clear. Walk away from Claire, or the boy bleeds. Claire stepped forward, voice breaking. Please, he's just a kid. Take me instead. Jacob shook his head violently. No, Claire. The leader chuckled darkly. Touching, but business is business. Ethan's hand tightened into a fist. You think you can scare me with threats? You forget who I am. The man sneered. A man without a company, without a family, without power. Ethan's lips curved into something dangerous. Wrong. I have something you'll never touch. He moved fast. One punch sent the phone crashing to the floor. The warehouse erupted shouts, fists, chaos. Claire darted to Jacob, clawing at the ropes around his wrists. Hold on, I've got you. Behind her, Ethan fought with brutal precision, each strike fueled by years of buried rage. But 3 against 1 was a war. Blood ran from his lip. His knuckles split. Still, he didn't stop. Finally, Claire freed Jacob. She pulled him close. Run! Jacob bolted toward the exit, stumbling into the night. One of the men lunged after him, but Ethan caught him by the collar, slamming him against the steel wall. His voice was a growl. You touch him again, and I bury you myself. The man froze, fear flashing in his eyes. Claire rushed to Ethan's side, breathless. We have to go. Ethan shoved the last man to the ground and grabbed her hand. They sprinted out of the warehouse into the night air. Jacob waited by the car, shaking, eyes wide with relief. Claire hugged him tight, sobs breaking free. You're safe. You're safe. Ethan stood beside them, chest heaving, blood dripping from his knuckles. For a moment, the storm felt behind them, but then, headlights flared. A convoy of black cars rolled up, blocking the road. Doors opened. Men in darker suits stepped out, and from the lead car emerged a figure Ethan hadn't seen in years. His father's brother, the true patriarch. Uncle Richard, did you really think, Richard's voice boomed, that this was about a boy? No, Ethan. This is about reminding you who controls this city. The night froze. Claire clutched Jacob's hand. Ethan stepped forward, fury burning in his eyes. You've taken my company. My inheritance. You've dragged her family through the dirt. And now, you think you can break me? Richard smiled coldly. You're already broken. You just don't know it yet. Claire's heart pounded. The air was electric, heavy with danger. Ethan's voice cut through the dark, low and deadly. Then you're about to find out what happens when a broken man stops playing by your rules. The dock fell silent. The storm of bloodlines, power, and love was only beginning. The docks were frozen in silence. Richard Weston stood beneath the headlights, hands clasped behind his back, the picture of power. Behind him, rows of black-suited men waited like shadows. Claire clutched Jacob tighter. Her pulse raced. Ethan stepped forward, blood still on his knuckles. This ends tonight. Richard smirked. No, nephew. Tonight is just the beginning. You've chosen a girl from the gutter over your blood, and for that, you'll lose everything. Ethan's jaw tightened. I already did. And I'm still standing. The standoff cracked when sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights cut through the night. Richard's men shifted uneasily. Richard leaned closer, voice dripping venom. You can't fight me in the city. Walk away, Ethan, or I'll bury you under headlines you can't escape. With a flick of his hand, his men retreated into the cars. Engines roared. In minutes, the convoy vanished into the night, leaving nothing but the echo of his threat. Back at the penthouse, Claire wrapped a blanket around Jacob as he dozed on the sofa, exhaustion etched across his young face. She turned to Ethan. He's coming for you. For us. What if we can't fight him? Ethan's gaze was steel. Then we stopped playing defense. We hit back. Publicly. Claire blinked. Publicly. Ethan, your name is already... He cut her off. Then we rebuild it. Together. The next morning, Ethan did the unthinkable. He called a press conference. Not from the boardroom. Not from the Weston Tower. From the steps of City Hall, reporters flooded the square. Cameras pointed. Microphones shoved forward. Ethan Weston, no longer CEO, no longer heir, stood tall beside Claire Morales, the assistant once branded a scandal. He faced the crowd. My uncle thinks he can buy silence with threats. He thinks family power is untouchable. He's wrong. Flashes burst. Gasps rippled. Ethan's voice carried louder. They tried to destroy me. They tried to break her. They even went after her brother. That ends now. Claire stepped forward, heart pounding. I'm not ashamed of where I come from. Yes, my father was a criminal. But I am not him. I built my life with hard work, sacrifice, and love for my family. And I won't let anyone use my past to silence me. Her voice cracked once but steadied. They can take companies, they can take titles, but they cannot take our truth. The square erupted. Cheers. Shouts. The tide was turning. Inside Weston Tower, Richard watched the broadcast from his private office. His face darkened. Foolish boy, he muttered. You think the people can save you? Victoria sat nearby, swirling her wine glass. Her smile was cold. Maybe not the people, but the law can. She slid a folder across the desk. Claire Morales. Fraud charges. Evidence ready to leak. Tomorrow morning she won't be a heroine. She'll be a criminal, just like her father. Richard's smile returned. Perfect. That evening, Claire sat with Ethan on the balcony, the city glowing beneath them. For once, there was quiet. She whispered, Do you ever regret it? Choosing me? Losing everything? Ethan turned to her, eyes unwavering. Every empire falls. But you're the only thing I can't lose. Her breath caught. The world melted away for a single heartbeat, until Ethan's phone buzzed. A new headline alert lit the screen. Claire Morales under investigation. Evidence of fraud to be revealed. Claire's face drained of color. No, that's not real. Ethan's jaw clenched. His voice was deadly calm. They just declared war in front of the whole city. The morning after their speech, New York woke to chaos again. Headlines screamed across every network. Claire Morales under criminal investigation. New evidence links assistant to fraud. Like father, like daughter. Claire stared at the screen, her hands cold. This can't be happening. I never touched company money, I don't even have access. Ethan's jaw was tight as steel. They forged it, Victoria and Richard. They'll stop at nothing. Her voice shook. But the public won't know that. They'll believe every word. Outside, reporters swarmed the building, their voices like knives. Claire, did you steal company funds? Are you following in your father's footsteps? Every flashbulb seared deeper into her chest. By noon, the impossible became real. A subpoena arrived. Claire Morales was officially summoned for questioning at the district attorney's office. Jacob cried out, They can't do this. She didn't do anything. Claire's breath trembled. She pulled him close. It's okay. I'll go. I'll tell the truth. But Ethan's voice cut through. You don't walk in there alone. If they want you, they go through me first. The DA's office was swarming with cameras. Claire stepped out of the car, Ethan at her side. The crowd shouted like a storm. Criminal assistant. She trapped the billionaire. Lock her up. Claire's knees wobbled. For a second, she almost stumbled. But Ethan's hand found hers, grounding her. Inside, the halls were cold. A prosecutor slammed a file onto the table. Miss Morales, our evidence shows you transferred funds from a Weston account to cover your family's debts. Care to explain? Claire's throat went dry. I never touched those accounts. I wouldn't even know how. The prosecutor's smirk was sharp. Funny. Because the signatures match yours. She blinked in horror. That's not possible. Someone forged it. The prosecutor leaned closer. Then prove it. Hours passed. Question after question. Accusation after accusation. When she finally stumbled out of the room, her face was pale, eyes glassy. Ethan was waiting in the corridor. He stepped forward instantly. Claire. Her voice cracked. They think I'm guilty. They already decided. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Then we change the verdict. We find proof. I won't let them take you down for something you didn't do. That night, the city buzzed with breaking news. Victoria appeared on every channel, smiling like victory itself. It's tragic, really. The girl everyone thought was a hero turns out to be exactly like her father. And Ethan, blinded by infatuation, he lost everything. This isn't love, it's weakness. Claire watched the broadcast from the penthouse couch, tears burning her eyes. Maybe she's right, she whispered. Maybe loving me is just destroying you. Oh, Ethan turned sharply, his voice fierce. Don't ever say that. Loving you is the only thing keeping me alive. Her heart broke at the fire in his tone. The next day, things escalated. The DA's office announced an official hearing. Claire would face charges publicly in front of the court. The news sent shockwaves. Investors pulled back further. Old friends vanished. Even strangers spat her name like poison. At night, she sat by the window, staring at the city lights. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. Ethan stepped beside her, sliding his hand into hers. You can, because you won't do it alone. We fight this together. Oh, her chest tightened, her eyes filled. But what if we lose? He leaned closer, his voice low. Then we lose together. And I would rather lose everything with you than win it all without you. The moment hung in the air, raw and unbreakable. Until the phone rang, Ethan answered. His face hardened. He ended the call and turned to her. That was my lawyer. Richard's team just pushed for bail denial. Claire's heart stopped. Meaning? Ethan's voice was quiet, lethal. Meaning if they win tomorrow, you won't be coming home. The morning of the hearing arrived gray and heavy, as if the city itself knew what was about to happen. Outside the courthouse, a sea of cameras swarmed like vultures. Reporters shoved microphones forward, their voices crashing into each other. Claire, will you plead guilty? Did you steal company funds? Are you hiding behind Ethan Weston's protection? Claire gripped her brother's hand as they stepped out of the car. Jacob's eyes were wide with fear. Don't listen to them, Ethan murmured, his arms steady around her. You keep your head up. Let me deal with the noise. Oh, but the noise was deafening. Flashes, shouts, headlines already forming before she even entered the courthouse. Inside, the courtroom was colder than winter itself. Rows of strangers filled the benches, investors, journalists, rivals. The air smelled of ink and judgment. Claire sat at the defendant's table, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles burned. Across the room, Victoria sat elegantly in the front row, a faint smile curving her lips. Beside her, Richard Weston adjusted his cufflinks, as if this trial were nothing more than business. The prosecutor rose, voice sharp. Your Honor, the people will show that Claire Morales, under the guise of loyalty to Ethan Weston, siphoned company funds to cover her personal debts. She is not a victim. She is a criminal just like her father before her. Gasps rippled through the court. Claire's stomach twisted. Her lawyer leaned close, whispering, Stay calm. Let them play their hand. But calm was impossible. Every eye in the room was fire. The prosecutor slammed evidence onto the screen. Bank transfers, signatures, documents stamped with her name. Here, he declared, pointing. A transfer of $250,000 to a Morales family account, days after the storm. Tell us, Miss Morales, how does an assistant with a modest salary explain this? Claire's mouth opened, but no sound came. She had never seen these documents in her life. I didn't. The prosecutor pounced. You didn't what? You didn't sign? You didn't take the money? Are you suggesting the documents are forged? Her voice trembled. Yes, they have to be. The crowd erupted in whispers. Forged? Convenient. The judge banged the gavel. Order. Claire's face burned. She felt the weight of her father's shadow pressing down on her. Like father, like daughter. Ethan sat behind her, his fists clenched on the bench. He wanted to stand, to roar the truth into the room, but the gavel would silence him. So instead, he leaned forward, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "Look at me." She turned, tears threatening her vision. "You are not your father," Ethan whispered. "And you are not alone. Breathe." The words steadied her pulse, just enough to survive the storm. Hours dragged. Witnesses called. Accountants testified. Every voice seemed rehearsed. One man claimed he saw her access the accounts late at night. Another swore she bragged about making money the Weston way. All lies, all planted. Claire's hands shook. How could she fight ghosts conjured out of thin air? When it was finally her turn to speak, her knees wobbled as she walked to the stand. The prosecutor smirked. "Miss Morales, did you or did you not benefit from funds linked to Weston Enterprises?" Her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. "I never touched company money." "Not once." He held up the papers. "So these signatures are fabrications?" "Yes." He leaned closer, sneering. "And we should just believe you? The daughter of a convicted fraud?" The courtroom gasped. Claire froze. Every nerve screamed to break. But then her eyes found Ethan's. Unyielding. Fierce. And she spoke. "Yes, because unlike my father, I'm not running from the truth. I'm standing in it." The room hushed. For a moment, silence reigned. Then the prosecutor chuckled, low and cruel. "Touching. But words don't erase evidence." He slammed the folder shut and turned to the judge. "The people rest, Your Honor." Outside during recess, chaos exploded again. Reporters shoved microphones in her face. "Claire, is it true your father taught you to forge documents? Are you going to jail?" Claire tried to push through, Jacob clinging to her side. Suddenly, Victoria appeared, flawless as ever, reporters swarming her. "It's tragic, really," she said sweetly. "I warned Ethan that associating with her would destroy him. And now look, he's lost his company, his name, and soon, she'll lose her freedom. Some people are just born to repeat history." Claire froze, humiliation burning her veins. Ethan stepped between them, his voice a growl. "Careful, Victoria. You might choke on your own poison." Her smile widened. "We'll see who chokes first." Back inside, the judge announced closing arguments would be heard the next day. As the crowd dispersed, Claire sat alone on the wooden bench, head in her hands. "I can't win this," she whispered. Ethan sat beside her, sliding his arm around her shoulders. "Then we don't play their game. We find proof, something they can't fake." She shook her head. "But what if we can't?" He leaned closer, his voice firm. "Claire, listen to me. I lost everything, my company, my inheritance, but I will not lose you. Not to them. Not to lies." Her chest ached. Tears blurred her eyes. And in that moment, she believed him. That night, the penthouse felt heavier than ever. Jacob slept on the couch, restless even in dreams. Claire stood by the window, staring at the city lights, the weight of the trial pressing down like chains. Ethan joined her, his presence steady. "Tomorrow decides everything," she whispered. He nodded. "Then tomorrow, we make our stand." Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. A new message appeared anonymous. It read, "She's innocent. I have proof. Meet me at midnight. Alone." The address was a warehouse on the edge of the river. Ethan's eyes darkened. He looked at Claire. This could be a trap. Her breath caught. Or it could be the only way to save me. The city was quiet at midnight, the kind of quiet that felt wrong. Ethan Weston's black car rolled to a stop at the edge of the East River docks. Fog coiled around the street lamps, wrapping the old warehouse in shadows. The message repeated in his mind. "She's innocent. I have proof. Meet me at midnight. Alone." He tightened his grip on the wheel. Claire's face flashed in his thoughts, her trembling in court, her voice breaking under accusations. He couldn't fail her. Not now. Inside the warehouse, the air was damp, smelling of rust and salt. Footsteps echoed as he moved deeper into the dark. "Weston," a voice rasped. Ethan froze. A figure stepped from the shadows. Thin, hunched, a face half hidden under a hood. "You came." Ethan's voice was sharp. "You said you have proof. Show me." The man pulled a flash drive from his coat. His hands shook. "These bank logs. Transfers, the real ones, the signatures fabricated, the money redirected to an offshore account under Richard Weston's name. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You're saying my uncle planted it?" The man nodded. "I worked for him. I forged the documents. He paid me. But now, he wants me gone." Before Ethan could respond, a sound split the night. Tires screeching. Headlights blazed through the warehouse windows. Black cars screeched to a stop outside. Ethan cursed under his breath. It was a trap. The man's face drained of color. "No, no, they found me." The warehouse doors burst open. Men in suits poured in, guns gleaming under the light. At the front stood Richard Weston himself, flanked by Victoria. Richard's voice thundered. "Ethan, always chasing ghosts. Did you really think I wouldn't know?" Ethan's jaw locked. "You framed her. You ruined her name. And now you're trying to bury the only witness who can clear her." Richard's smile was cold. "Because truth doesn't matter, nephew. Power does." He nodded at his men. "Kill him. Kill them both." Chows exploded. The hooded man bolted, clutching the flash drive. Shots rang out. He collapsed, blood staining the concrete. The flash drive skidded across the floor. Ethan dove forward, grabbing it, bullets sparking off steel around him. He rolled behind a pillar, fury burning in his chest. Victoria's voice cut through the smoke. "Do you see, Ethan? You can't win. Claire will rot in prison, and you'll be remembered as the fool who lost everything for her." Ethan's voice was lethal. "Number, I'll be remembered as the man who burned your empire to the ground." He dashed for the exit, dodging fire, every muscle fueled by rage. A man lunged, but Ethan struck him down with a brutal punch, knuckles splitting again. At last, he burst into the foggy night, the flash drive clutched in his hand. He threw himself into the car. The engine roared to life. Tires screamed as bullets cracked the rear window. Through the chaos, he sped into the city lights, breath heaving, heart pounding. Beside him on the seat, the flash drive glowed faintly under the dashboard light. Proof, Claire's salvation, but also a death sentence for the man who had given it. Back at the penthouse, Claire sat awake, her hands twisting the edge of her blanket. Jacob slept restlessly on the couch, unaware of the storm outside. When the door burst open, she jumped to her feet. "Ethan." He was bleeding, his shirt torn, his knuckles raw. But in his hand, the flash drive. Her eyes widened. "Is that?" He nodded, chest heaving. "This is it. This clears you." She rushed forward, throwing her arms around him. Relief and terror crashed together. But his body was stiff, his voice dark. "They'll come harder now. Richard knows I have this." Morning came with headlines hotter than fire. Witness dead in warehouse shootout. Ethan Weston spotted fleeing scene. Did the fallen CEO cross the line? Claire's stomach dropped as she read the news. "They're blaming you." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Of course they are. Richard controls the press. But it doesn't matter. Tomorrow, you walk into court with this drive, and the truth will end him." Her eyes filled with tears. "What if they destroy it before we can show it?" He gripped her hands. "Then I'll stand in front of that judge myself and swear it. I don't care if they throw me in prison next to you, I will not let you fall." But just as hope flickered, the television blared with breaking news. Victoria's face filled the screen, smiling for the cameras. "This morning, new evidence will be filed proving Ethan Weston interfered with witnesses and tampered with company records. He is no longer just reckless, he is dangerous." Claire's blood ran cold. "They're coming for you now." Ethan's expression didn't falter. "Let them. As long as I get that drive to court first." The city outside stirred with noise, reporters waiting, enemies circling. Claire stood at the window, clutching the flash drive to her chest. "I thought I was the one on trial," she whispered. Ethan stepped beside her, his voice low. "We both are. And tomorrow, we find out if love can survive a war." The skyline shimmered in silence, heavy with what was to come. The courthouse was overflowing. Reporters jammed the steps, cameras buzzing like hornets. Inside, every seat was filled. The trial of Claire Morales had become the trial of the year. She sat at the defense table, heart hammering. Jacob sat behind her, his young hands clenched in fear. Ethan stood close, steady as stone. Richard Weston and Victoria entered like royalty. Their smiles dripped victory. The judge banged the gavel. Final day. Closing evidence. The prosecutor rose first. "Your Honor, The evidence is overwhelming. The defendant siphoned company funds. She must answer for her crimes. History repeats like father, like daughter. Whispers rippled across the courtroom. Claire's face burned. The judge turned. Defense? Ethan stepped forward. Not the lawyer, not the accused, just a man who refused to stay silent. With the court's permission, I have new evidence. Gasps exploded. Victoria's smile faltered. Richard's eyes narrowed. The judge nodded. Proceed. Ethan walked to the center, holding the flash drive like fire itself. This, he said, contains the real transfer logs, every cent traced to an offshore account owned by Richard Weston. Shock hit the room like thunder. The prosecutor sputtered. Objection. This is unverified. But the judge allowed it. Screens flickered alive. Numbers, dates, signatures, all proving Claire had been framed. The gallery erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously. Investors gasped. Ethan's voice cut through. They blamed Claire because she was easy, because she was poor, because she had no power. But today, the truth stands taller than their lies. Claire's eyes filled. The judge turned sharply. Richard Weston. Do you deny these accounts are yours? Richard rose, red with fury. Lies. Fabrications. My nephew conspires. But Victoria stood too, panic breaking her perfect mask. Your Honor, stop this. The judge's gavel slammed. Silence, the evidence is clear. He turned to Claire. Miss Morales, the charges against you are dismissed. You are free. Claire's knees buckled. Relief crashed through her. Jacob burst into tears, hugging her tightly. Reporters shouted, She's innocent. The Weston heir exposed. Assistant saves herself and billionaire. But Richard wasn't finished. He lunged across the table, pointing at Ethan. You destroyed everything. You've doomed us all. Ethan stood tall, unflinching. Number I freed us. And you doomed yourself. Security dragged Richard away as Victoria shouted in vain, her empire of glass shattering around her. Outside the courthouse, the crowd was wild. Cheers rose as Claire stepped into the sunlight, Ethan at her side, Jacob clutching her hand. A reporter called out, Claire, you went from scandal to hero. What will you do now? She paused, eyes sweeping the flashing cameras. I'll live. I'll work. I'll keep fighting for what's right. Because I've learned, true worth isn't in a title or a last name. It's in how you choose to stand when the storm hits. The crowd erupted. Applause echoed down the steps. Later, when the chaos faded, Claire and Ethan stood alone by the river where it all began. She whispered, You lost everything. Your company, your inheritance. And still, you chose me. Ethan smiled softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. Number I gained everything, because I found you. Her heart swelled. Tears blurred the lights of the city. Then, slowly, she leaned into him. His arms wrapped around her. Steady. Unbreakable. For the first time, there was no scandal, no judgment, just two souls, scarred but unshaken, finally safe in each other's arms. The storm was over, and love had won.